afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the second edition of Masai's Fireside Chat. And today, our guest is someone who has made a lot of accomplishments, I think. When you read about his profile, and I'll be telling you more about him. But yeah, today we are joined by Mr. Aashish Mittal, who's the co-founder and CTO of InterviewVector. InterviewVector is it's a service organization that connects organizations with pre-vetted interview panels. So they provide an interview as a service to basically provide better flexibility and scale to schedule interviews. And to put it in simpler terms, they have an expert panel who help, expert panel of experienced interviewers who handle the screening rounds at organizations. So very, very unique business model, something that at least I have never heard of before. So very pleased to have you today with us, Aashish. And
thanks, Yash, and thanks, Masai, for having me on the chat. Like, I really love it. And thanks for the very nice introduction.
Well, I'm not done yet. To tell you a little bit more, before he was with before he started, in fact, InterviewVector, he was with Tower Research Capital for over 8 years, where it's a high frequency trading, algorithmic trading, and financial services fund, and he was responsible for building tech teams in their India and Singapore offices. And I know that a lot of you who are joining us, I appreciate to you as this is for techies. So let me tell you how techie this is. Aashish is actually a core engineer who's skilled in Python, C++ programming, and data structures. So, clearly we have someone who really knows what he's talking about. And he was a silver medalist at IIT Delhi, where he's completed his BTech and MTech in computer science. So Aashish, so pleased to have you with us today. And, this is a topic that I am personally very, very interested in. And the topic at hand is, of course, the importance of growth mindset in developers. I have in the past heard growth mindset a lot as a phrase, usually being applied to people who are leadership entrepreneurs. But when I started reading, a lot more about it, I realized that it is something which is extremely important for developers as well. So having said that, let me pose my very first question to you, which is that, from the context of software development, what exactly does growth mindset mean?
I think that's a very nice question, Suyash. I think we generally think let me explain growth mindset. What's growth mindset in itself first, and then how it comes in context of a software development is. It sounds very fancy word, to be honest. Like, it's a growth mindset. Like, you would probably have, like, as you mentioned earlier, we probably would have heard it in a lot of leadership talks. Like, you need to grow the business, you need to grow the sales, and all those things. But at the end of it, what growth mindset is all about is just how, to keep improving yourself. And in terms of how it relates with software engineering or software development, it's the basic core fundamental of it. If you look at technology, computers in itself is started picking up at 1990s. In the last 30 years or 35 years, we have come from Google is probably less than 20 years old, like close to 20 years, not less than, but close to 20 years old. Amazon is 1989, something like 30 years old. So look at in 30 years from where we have come, so it's an ever-changing domain. So anyone who wants to build their career in sort of in technology, in software development, in sort of all these STEM sort of degrees, they need to be sort of grow with the pace that we are growing. All these technologies are growing, and that's where the growth mindset in itself comes in. You have to evolve yourself with the changing times, and you need to upskill yourself, learn about things, and you have to learn as well as unlearn also, because a lot of things are being like, optimize in a very different manner than which we were like sort of learning 10 years back. So it's a constant sort of cycle where you have to keep evolving yourself. And that's what the growth mindset is all about. If you want to be really excel in it, if you really are interested in this space, it's a core part of it, more than as core as it is for a business development or for a, a leadership one to grow themselves, basically.
Thank you so much for that, Ashish. I completely agree with you. It is a very essential skill nowadays for anyone and everyone to really progress in life. I think even at a personal level. Completely agree with you on that.
Right. Look
Uh,
at, like, I'll give you example. Look at like the languages, like, if you look last 5 years, Python and JavaScripts have been, sort of going, like, sort of, they are increasing at a very exponential rate. 10 years, 15 years back, C++, Java was the, king. Like, they still are being used. They are not irrelevant. Like, they still have a very big, but look at like how how the demographics have changed. PHP is considered legacy code these days. Some, like, 10 years back, 15 years back, it was the hot piece of the, like, market at that point of time. Now, no one wants to sort of, like, if you're building something new, no one starts with PHP these days.
Very beautifully put. And I think that really ties into my next question for you, which is that so the antithesis of growth mindset is fixed mindset. Now, suppose you bring in two software developers. One has developed the skill of growth mindset. One is still in a fixed mindset. In terms of their work, their quality of work, what difference do you see between the two? How can you really tell, okay, yeah, this person has fixed mindset, this one's growth mindset?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the growth mindset is about learning and unlearning things. Why? How do you keep yourself update with the new technologies? How are you upskilling yourself with different kind of different tech stacks, different design decisions? Like a lot of, like, let's say a lot of big tech, all the Fang or Mang or all the companies have released their sort of how they are building things. If you look at the React.js framework, it came out from Facebook, right? People picked it up, and now it's one of the biggest frameworks out there for the front end part. So I think the biggest difference between a like, fixed mindset versus a growth mindset is, if you are a fixed mindset, especially in technology, it's like kind of like a standing bus. You have bought a ticket on a standing bus. Yeah, you're at a good station, but you will not move further. You probably enjoy the comfort of a bus, but like, you will stay there as it is. If you keep learning, if you keep moving, if you keep upgrading yourself, then you have a good chance to be somewhere nice later on. And even if it's not about the destination, it's the journey would be really nice, because you will be learning through all those different things, that how the technology is evolving. And that's where the, fun part is, being a, nerd, basically, you could say.
Yeah,
Sorry, I can.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I completely, again, and what's really important is, at least in the Indian context, I think somewhere that growth mindset is missing in the vast majority of software developers in this country. Because if you look at the 2019 to 2020 skills gap report that was released by Udemy, it said something like 92% of employees in India believe that there is a skills gap in the country. 76% feel that they have been personally impacted by it. Not just that, we were recently in a roundtable with certain, HRs from some of the top IT firms. And again, one of the panelists there said that, yeah, 90% of our engineers are unemployable. So, uh, would you agree that somewhere this is from a lack of that growth mindset that is really required to be successful in this particular field?
That's definitely true. I think there is some element of truth in this statement, as well as the lack of growth mindset. I think people in India believe the education ends after 12th, or maybe the college, or maybe, unless you're in a college, you will not study further. I think my international colleagues, like I have worked in Singapore for 5.5 years. I've been US, like, worked over there. Uh, they keep studying. I think that's where the difference is. Like the studying is not just being part of a college or you are a full time basically. It's more about upskilling yourself. Like, I think maybe a lot of people in India are unwanted engineers. You could say that that could be because of those, like, because I think lack of sort of uh, choices at the early age. But I think the lack of growth mindset is definitely hurting in India, where we are lacking in upskilling ourselves to the relevant skills. Like AI, ML have been growing, all these new domains that have been opening up, and India is still, even though these are new skills, we are still lagging behind the world. Like we could have picked it up very sort of in the beginning itself. So yes, I think that is there. Apart from that, the education that we are imparting at the, I think that's somewhere. It's not just the problem with the no problem with the people. It's also the kind of expectations that are being set in the educational curriculum these days. Like college mein ho pad lo, that's it. So I think the growth mindset needs to be coupled with a sort of a good, I would say, more of a fun approach rather than like as long as you're enjoying this work, I think you will probably grow big.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself. That's the thing, right? The word that you used, as long as you enjoy your work. I believe it was, forgetting the name of the. Oh, well, yeah, there was a poet, Robert Frost, and in one of his poems, he said that to really be successful, we need to turn our avocation into our vocation. Your avocation being your hobby, and your
Yeah.
vocation being your job. So we need to make our avocation our vocation, and that's where if your avocation is software development, then you will make it your vocation. You will want to grow in that. So absolutely, and I think it's really important right now for our country because, like I had mentioned in some of our promos earlier, that there was a report that was released in 2020 after the pandemic struck by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which basically said that for this country to recover from the economic shock that was brought by the pandemic, the country needs to develop a growth mindset, a no compromise growth mindset. And this becomes particularly important in the context of the IT industry, IT engineers, because IT actually contributes 9% of our country's GDP, which is a huge number. Nine might seem like a small number, it's actually a very huge number, and it's only going to increase if you ask me. So, thank you so much for putting that point forward. Moving on, I want to ask you this: that sure, so we talked about okay, we have to have growth mindset, all that, but where do we start? Is it something that leaders need to help, say, entry level people with? A person can start developing the skill on their own. Is it even something that you can develop as a skill, or is it something that you're born with? So, if you could tell us a little bit about that.
So again, as the name says, like it's a mindset. It's not something you're born with. It's not like your genetic features or like you can't change. It's a mindset. It's like it's all about personal growth in like how you yourself view your work or view your sort of learnings basically. I think you can start anyone. I have seen people in like across in my last decade in this industry, people who have started late, people who have been learning from a very childhood age. Again, you can start anywhere, and it's a slow process. It's kind of like sort of bringing up a tree. It doesn't become a lush green tree in a day. It will start as a seed basically. So I would say like everyone can start wherever they are standing right now. If you are at whatever level they are, start learning, growing outwardly. Like start from whichever domain you're working with. Try to learn like the fundamentals of that first, because a bird in a hand is better than two in the bush, right? Like at least be good at what you're doing first, and then let me grow outward to see what others, what's out there to sort of learn basically, and then explore my sort of these learnings, how can I apply them in real world. Like a simple example would be like, and I have seen this across a lot of, my team also and other also. Uh, like let's say if you are in software development, bugs are very simple. Like, everyone experiences and everyone solves them. Like, and everyone has to solve them to grow. Now,
Yeah, people.
is
Sorry
your
to interrupt, but
sorry,
probably
you're
people.
you're right. You are at mute.
Sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yeah, I would say I was just going to interject. Probably, I think developers probably sleep and have nightmares of getting a segmentation fault every single night.
Yeah.
Just,
So, but I think I think the good thing about bugs is it helps you learn a lot of things. I think one of the some of the core principles of your operating system, some of the core principles of your, like, core computer science can be learned by solving bugs. But generally, I've seen the trend. As long as you can solve the bug, that's all it matters. It doesn't matter why it happened, how, like, why it should, like, how can I avoid it next time, rather than the focus is just get it solved this time and then I'll move on to the next task. It's more of a task thing rather than the learning thing, and that's a very, different sort of mindset I've seen across, like, people where the growth mindset versus, someone who just wants to get their task done. And that, sort of pays you well in the long term in a very exponential manner, because in the beginning, so understanding why a bug happens or why these things happen might take you more time than someone who else is working, but these things compound really fast. So I think that's one of the examples. Start wherever you are basically and start learning, start upskilling. Once you're good at what you're doing, start try to learn something new. Maybe, there are so many technologies out there. If you're in front end, if you already have JavaScript, learn some different frameworks, experiment them out. Why someone chose Next, why someone chose Vue, why someone chose, like, let's say, React. There must be reasons. People are not stupid who have developed these things. Like, there must be some, like, there are some cases where these must be useful, and you need to understand why and when, and that will give you so much sort of, like, knowledge. And once you're done with that, move to somewhere else. Like, as long as you keep experimenting, these knowledge will start connecting, and then it becomes a tree. Like, so I think that's where I think and obviously a lot of, as you said, does the leadership has to sort of help the people. Everyone has a, I would say everyone has a put, like, has a responsibility to help each and everyone, because, and that's why people have groups, sessions, a lot of, I think a reason why people grow the most while they are studying is because they have a peer group basically to discuss things, to experiment out. I think in jobs it becomes more of a race thing where you are not able to things like, you lose your study group basically. I think that's where the factor is. But yeah, companies as well as, all these have a responsibility to sort of put help each other out to sort of put them in the right direction.
Thank you so much for that, Ashish. Just to remind everyone who's here, who joined us a little late, we have Mr. Aashish Mittal here, the co-founder and CTO of InterviewVector, who's talking to about the importance of growth mindset in developers. Ashish, I want to ask you to take that further along, that when you take managers, leaders, say you are the CTO yourself, you have so many people working, reporting to you. How do you mentor them also to really develop that growth mindset? Where does one start as a manager to uh, foster that culture of developing a growth mindset?
I think there is no one way to do it. There are multiple channels that you have to explore it out. I think one of the things is, like, try to understand the fundamentals. A lot of people who are working on the tech stack in my companies, I generally give them time to understand, why this happened and why it should, like, what was the main core reason. Generally, like, things are much more simpler. People try to overcomplicate things. People try to don't understand why the bugs are, like, so debugging is one way. Like, this is just one small part of it. Apart from that, upskilling yourself. There is so much knowledge out there. Like, I do promote in my company everyone to read at least a few books a year. Like, again, it's voluntarily, but I do point them out. These are the good books. If you really like go through them. It will definitely improve your, coding skills, like, how the design patterns, like even in the frameworks, you can, like, I think there are endless books out there. It's we who are limited rather than the books that are limited. There are upskilling courses, like, like enroll into those and start questioning why. And I think that is the biggest part, like why we are doing this and why not this. They should have a clear understanding of the business that we are solving also, because that helps you understand, like, why did we took these design decisions rather than that, because everything comes at a cost in general in practical life, right? Like if you're trying to, there is nothing perfect. As a small startup also, you have to take decisions which are sort of justify your scale at this right point. That might not be perfect, but that might be faster also, right? So these design decisions gives you the experience as well as the knowledge that I think, and that's what I try to do. Like I hope my team will probably be able to. I hope I'll be able to do it in a good way. But that's the idea, because once you start learning why we are doing it, how we are doing it, and how can we do it better, that's where the growth mindset starts. And then you keep just growing out of this. And once you're independent, there is no stop.
I have a follow-up question, which is that
Suyesh, we are not able to hear you.
am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
All right. So I have a very simple question as a follow-up to that, which is there any age at which it is too late to really start building this? Or do you think like, yeah, anyone can, no matter where they are and whichever stage they are?
I think before your death, I think everyone can learn from it. Like, I think as long as you're not dead yet. A simple example, like, since it's a very cliched one and it's also popular in the people will be able to relate it much. Falguni Nair started a startup in cosmetics while coming from a fintech domain, and now Nika is such a big name. I know it's a cliche. There is a lot of people who will fail also, but the learning can happen at any age. She started at, I think, mid 50s, and we are still young. So yeah, I think we should learn from her. Like, she reinvented herself, right? Like that's something that should be appreciated. Like someone who has spent her career in finance, started a cosmetics business and beat the old businesses completely.
That's a beautiful example. Thank you so much for sharing that one, Aashish.
So yes, again, you're not audible.
I think there's a slight delay.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Before I move on, I remind everyone that we will be opening the floor for questions soon. So keep your arsenal of questions ready. We will be opening the floor for a full 25 minutes, so you'll be able to feed your questions to Aashish directly. But before I do open the floor, I do have one question, which is, can you share some real world examples from your own experience of how growth mindset actually made a difference, maybe at an organization level, at a personal level? Any example that you could share?
Yeah, I think so. Like as you mentioned, like I was at TAR Research Capital. It's a HFT business, high frequency trading business. It's a very, very competitive, technologically focused finance business. And now I'm doing my own startup in HR tech. So I think the reason I was always interested in the technology, because it's the impact that you can make. So I was always sort of aware of what are the things going on. Obviously, as I went along my career, I found few problems which I faced myself, and using those problems that I wanted to solve, I used I ended up starting something completely sort of different from what I have been doing for the last 7 to 8 years. And that again, there is a courage involved in it, but at least after some, like, I have to reinvent myself, I have to relearn all the things that I have gained. But that does not mean my experience was a waste. The experience, as I said earlier, like you have to unlearn yourself and relearn things and apply your experience to the new things. That's where the growth mindset is all about. And as long as you keep doing it, you can do anything. It will take a few learning time, but it should be easy. Like, as you keep doing it more and more, it will be more easier for you to pick things up, because you can relate things. it's kind of like this, if you go into the job market today, people will see, like, even if you know this, like, I have seen people who have experienced 5 years experience in Java picking up Python in 3 months. That's it. Like, they completely switched like the experience of Java to Python in 3 months. That's because once you have this mindset and once you're proficient in it, again, I'm not trying to undermine the effort that goes behind it, but you're ready for a challenge. You're prepared to pick things up and go along with it. And it's a constant, like, it's kind of like, keep putting effort on a daily basis. And, after a few months, you will start seeing big changes in yourself. So I think that's what, like, my experience has been. I had to reinvent myself because of this. And then I have picked up the skill, as a startup founder, that you need to. Building your own team was in itself, as a founder and as a sort of working for a multinational company, is completely different. So it's a completely new sort of world out here when you're doing something of your own. So yeah, I think it has been a great experience in that side.
I would also add that you doing this, I'm sure, is a part of that as well, because you was. I remember when we were chatting for the first time, you were like, I don't do these kind of things. I'm not
Yeah,
really into that kind of thing. But now here you are, and you were,
yeah, exactly.
speaking with everyone so wonderfully. So,
Yeah, as you said,
kudos
like,
to you for that.
in generally, like, technology people are introverts, and so am I. I'm a big sort of, like, I generally try to avoid any limelight, just stay in my comfort zone. But yeah, then again, startup, like, has made me learn and pick a lot of new things. And this is just one of the good, like, one of another, sort of luck, I would say, great thing that I've learned. Like, you need to go out and talk to people. And since we all are, like, of very similar mindset, we are all developers, we'll be able to understand each other much well. Like, hopefully my experience will be able to help you guys. There is nothing wrong with, like, as an introvert, people think we don't really like to talk. It's just they don't understand we don't really like to talk to someone who doesn't share our interest.
Absolutely. I think just to validate that this is going to help you guys,
Yeah.
how about everyone who is participating here, just give us a thumbs up as a reaction or something? Anyone? All right, we have 1, 2, 3. We are getting a couple of. I think we will get to whatever is the number of participants. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being a great audience here. I want to use this opportunity now to open the floor to audience questions. So I would request you to please raise your hand. There's a raise hand option. And once you do, I will ask you to unmute, and you can unmute yourself and directly address your question to Aashish. Alternatively, if you are not comfortable with that, please feel free to DM it to me. I will be happy to take the question from my side to Ashish. So any questions, anyone want to raise their hands? Come on, that's not possible that no one has any questions. Come on, guys. Okay, we have one question. I'm going to ask Sachin. You can unmute yourself. This is Sachin Modi. Sachin, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ashish. Actually,
Hey,
my
Sachin.
question is, as a developer, you were also loving technology in the past. So you saw some things that were not getting resolved for the current, as the current startups are not resolving those things or something like that. So you started your own product or service. So I want to ask, that's also my question. So after how much time in the spending in the industry, one can choose if someone wants to start up or do some solve some problems. So after how much experience he can pursue that, or he can continue with the job itself. So that's my question. Hope I made my question clear.
Yeah, Sachin, thanks for asking the question. I think, again, this is a thought a lot of people have, but there is no right answer, to be honest, for this one. Let me answer it in a different way. Like, uh, I still love technology. When I start, I started this startup not from the perspective that I'll provide service and build a business out of it, because I think it's a problem that each and everyone faces. So I wanted to build a technological solution for this one. So that's, and I'm still working on that one. It's a work in progress. Uh, and the second part of your question was how many years do you need in the industry before you can start a startup? There is no limit. You can start right from your college. People are doing it in their undergrads also while working. I have seen people who are working a job while exploring out their ideas, in parallel. Once they have more traction, they leave their job, or just grow it till a certain point with their jobs also. And again, it's more about personal comfort. Again, there are a lot of different dimensions that you need to understand before doing a startup. It does look glamorous from the outside, but it's a lot of hustle as well as struggle, as well as fun also. Let's not undermine that part also. But a biggest aspect could be financial, whether you have a family to support or not. Do you know about the domain that you wanted to do the startup enough? Now, this does not necessarily, you can still research, you can still talk to a lot of people while you're undergrad, but definitely if you are in the same industry working for a lot of years, then that definitely helps, because you have directly interacted over there for a lot of years, so that definitely helps. But does not, it's not necessary to do that research. It's not necessary to do a job to have a good research. Uh, a lot of examples in the industry, you could say BharatPay, one of the founders of the BharatPay was, I think, Shashwat. He was a very junior, he started BharatPay at a very early age. A lot of startups founders are just right after their undergrads. So I think there is no right age and no right of kind of experience. But before doing a startup, you need to have do serious research about the problem that you're trying to solve, and validate that in the market, build a MVP, test it out, see if there is a traction, if it's a real problem out there or not, before you can, seriously think about doing it full time. That's my 2 cents would be.
Thanks, Ashish. And I think this brings us back to Sachin also says thanks. Thank you, Sachin. That was a great question as well. And I think one thing that you mentioned before are, to put them in simpler terms, there was curiosity and inquisitiveness. Ask questions, be curious about why something is happening in a certain way. I'm sure that these are the things that will add into what you just said in terms of looking for those gaps, looking for those problems to solve.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Like if you keep asking questions, why is something is being done this way? Why, and once you start questioning, then only you will try to find some solution to this. Unless you ask questions, you will never be able to find why the status quo is there. Why is it not fixed yet? And that's the first part to start, questioning.
Okay, so any other questions, anyone? Well, I have a question. We talked about in terms of, one sec, Ashish, I'll unmute you. I think you got muted. Right. So we were talking about how people, how you can mentor people to grow the growth mindset, right? To develop the growth mindset. Can you give me some examples of things that maybe you personally do, maybe on a daily basis, maybe on a regular basis, that have helped you and that continue to help you personally in terms of developing that mindset?
So I'll give you example from recent, while in my, as a co-founder, I'm leading my tech team. So what I generally try to do is basically some of the things that I mentioned earlier, like how high I'm helping my team, and I hope that it is helping them again. That it is like, let's say the first thing starts from, starts from what you're doing working. Like rather than learning something new, be good at what you're doing first. Try to understand the fundamentals of those. So maybe just read the basic fundamental books about it, or maybe basic course on it. Like, just like, even if you know it, you will just glance through it very fast. So that will just, strengthen your fundamentals first. Like, apart from that, whenever, like, I think as a person, like, I have learned the most when the issues are there. Something is broken, and you start asking, why was it done this way? And what's the solution? What's the optimal solution to it? And what can we do from here now on? I try to not let go of my team, like, just let me do the jugaad here, and let's move further. I generally try to avoid that unless we are in a pinch where it's a production bug that just need to get it solved first. We'll put a RCA later on. So generally, that's my attitude, because I feel the time spent over here, the lag over here will, like, fasten my progress 6 months down the lane. The time that I'm spending investing in my team over here to understand the fundamentals of the issues, that will pay me. Another few things, read a few books on the tech stack you're working, or maybe the relevant ones. I have asked my team to sort of go through upskilling courses, like, have some, like, try to understand, like, and then help each other out. These are the concrete things that I have done in my. Apart from that, it's more of a journey, like, if you keep doing these things, and then they automatically come up with different ideas. Can we do it this way? And I think one of the key factor that like, I think one thing that I missed was give them freedom, basically, to make an error and then fix it later, rather than just forcing my ideas on them. So that way they learn it by experience, rather than sort of, like, if you already have a built train, then you don't really know how to build a train, right? So it's kind of like that.
A beautiful example. And I'll be coming back to you and asking you about the books and courses. But before that, I have a question here from Manideep, who asked, and I love this question, because I'm sure this is a question that a lot of us want to ask but don't, which is, how to handle context switching when working on different things at the same time?
It's definitely tough, I would say. Again, I generally prefer to bucket my time calendar, like daily calendar, in a different, these are the few hours that I'm gonna, like, again, I think I value focus really, I think, important, in the sense that a 2 hour continuous sitting, it's kind of like, if you're preparing for something, you need to have a consistent sitting for that one. If you keep getting distracted, like, again, these days, Slack, WhatsApp, they keep you distracting every few minutes. So I generally switch them off unless there is some emergency. I switch them off. I bucket my time during few hours. And then there is like few window space in between, where all the, sort of ad hoc nature of the business, or ad hoc nature of the, like, issues will come in between. So that's my way to focus on my different contexts, well, different projects, or different, sort of things that are on my plate. That way I can focus on one thing while I'm working on that, and that focus pays off for me.
Demonstrates your adaptability, and which is a core tenet of growth mindset. So love those examples. Thank you. And thank you, Manideep, for asking that question. As I said, I'm sure a lot of us are thinking it, but not everyone is asking it. Now, coming back to you talking about these various things, just suggest, please share some books that you think people should consider reading.
Again, it's very hard to, like, I'm not more of a fiction, or, like, they are not for the growth mindset, and it's very text specific. Like if you're reading Python, Fluent Python is a very nice book to go about. Like, it's such a nice way. There are design patterns in Java. I think I forgot the name of it. If you're reading C++, I think Brian Sotsap has a very nice book. It's a big one, but it gives you the lower level understanding of how C++ handles the memory and all those things. They're fairly technical, to be honest. Like, I didn't prepare a list of it for these, like, but
no, I think that's fair. This is a tech crowd. I think that's completely fair if you share names of tech books.
Yeah, so these books, they do take a lot of time to sort of go through, but I'm not in a hurry to read these books in general. Like when I'm reading them, like it's not like you need to finish them in a 1 month. There is an exam out there. I read them for the understanding and the in depth of the sort of how the inner functioning of a computer is working. So if you read it, the Brian starts of C++. C++ is a very low level language. It will give you much bigger insights. Python is a much more fluent language where you can manipulate the data in a, is a very easy manner and a very easy to read also. So that helps you over there. How basically Python helps you to think simply. C++ helps you to think efficiently. So these are two very different paradigms. And I think if you start with these two, you probably won't go wrong too much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I have another aspect of growth mindset that I want to pick your brains about. I think one aspect of it that isn't discussed too often at the moment is also being okay with saying, I don't know, and I'm open to learn, right? Now, you at a position of the CTO, or even before that, when you were setting up teams and everything, how did you seek help in those situations when you really hit a roadblock and felt like nothing is helping here? How do I move from here? How do I learn and really take the next steps? Can you give me something along those lines?
So in the situation when you don't really know something, like there are two ways to go forward from there. Like I think the first part is you do need to accept that you don't know, rather than living in a denial. Basically, rather than doing a crappy job, it's better to accept it and then let's try to find a solution to it. So there are two ways. One is to do research. Like I have relearned everything in the startup, and a lot of times it's my sort of team members who have helped me learn those things, because I ask them, I have a limited time period of limited time on my sort of schedule that I can devote to this one. Why don't you do the research and refine it, how it can help us get the pros and cons of it and what could be the design of it, and let's then discuss. And that way they both get the freedom to research something, and through the discussion it makes both of us better in the sort of at at that subject. The second way is sometimes things are very complicated. Like a lot of tech stacks are very difficult. Like research might not be the good way, because you can't research the whole sort of universe to figure out which is the best one by yourself. Take help. I think I have been very fortunate to have a sort of good community out there, have discussed with a lot of people, like, okay, this is the problem that I'm facing. What are the things at my disposal that I should look into, and what do you think which would be the best one? I think the reason we started with Python as a tech stack basically was someone suggested us it's easy to start, so people will be able to easy to grab it up, rather than like I was a C++ developer for 8 years. I would have C++ anyway for web development is not a good language to pick anyway. But again, a lot of different things, Java, you can do it in Spring Boot, you can do it in different Node.js and other things. But one advice I got at that time with the community was Python, you will be able to sort of grow with it. As I said, it's about thinking simple, right? So that's how I ended up picking it up. So yeah, I think research and take help whenever you feel that you are not able to take it, you are not able to get enough sort of decision by yourself. Don't shy from it.
Thank you. You mentioned reaching out to communities, finding that community which really helped you with this. Now, like you mentioned at one point, a lot of techies tend to be introverts, right?
Yeah.
And for them, it can be sometimes it can be an issue just to find that community. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about finding these communities that you could reach out to for help?
So I think the communities is just like we are having so many people out there. We are in some sense a community, right? There are a lot of people if you reach out to anyone on LinkedIn, or if there are a lot of let's say friends of friends of friends who probably are in the relevant domain. It doesn't. I have done a lot of send a LinkedIn request to people. I'm facing this problem. Can you help me out? And that's how and people respond. Like generally think like if, and it's not anyway, I'm not asking for a job, I'm not asking for something, like I'm just asking for help because they are senior in it. Again, like as a techie, we are working in a company, probably we have colleagues of colleagues. There are platforms where you can connect online these days. There are Slack groups, there are I think Discord groups where you can discuss like with people of like-minded, like what's going on. So I think that's how I found it, like so through personal contacts, through LinkedIn and all those things. And I understand that we are introverts, but once you start talking to people who are of similar nature, you don't really feel that shy.
Beautiful point. Again, a reminder to everyone, we are on with questions. If you have any questions, we're on for another 10 minutes or so. So please pose your questions. You can either raise your hand and I'll ask you to unmute, and then you can ask your question directly, or you can DM your questions to me in the chat and I will share them directly. Actually, is there any aspect of this? So I think the one thing that has growth mindset as a term has also become very cliche, right? I think it has been thrown around a lot as well.
It's a fancy word, like
it's a fancy word. But having said that, it is invaluable in many ways. Right? I think it just really differentiates the people who are okay with the status quo versus the people who want to grow further, right?
Yeah.
If you remove that full term of having growth mindset, where do you think you were exposed to the idea of just, I want to become better, I will put in those efforts to become better? In your case, was it something that started, say, when you were a kid? Was it something that when you were in IIT, that exposure led to that? What was your
I think my sort of learning, like I think it was during my IIT years. I think that was a very big change when I joined over there. Like, I think one of the big differences before, like when you're preparing for JEE, you're preparing for the sake of just getting into the IIT. Like a lot of us do that anyway. We do like physics, science, and physics, maths, but it's not from the understanding perspective. But once we are inside, like I realized there are a lot of people who just genuinely love what they're doing. They just wanted to learn whatever they had interest in, and they wanted to grow in that one. And that fascinated me a lot. Like aise jeena chahiye. Like that was a kind of feeling that like a lot of people call it passion. I wouldn't say passion is a very strong term in general, people say, and it's again thrown out a lot. Follow your passion, follow this and that. I generally don't believe in that one, but at least like I realized at least whatever you're doing, whatever you're spending your time in, do it in a do it while you're learning, basically. Even if you don't like it, you can move and you can keep trying to find something which you like, but at least whatever you have done, you know what you have done. And that's basically keeps sort of keeps adding up. And then at the end of the, you will soon realize that you have a good experience in all those things. Even if you are not a master, but you are a good enough space that you can always go there and pick something. One thing that it helps you is it makes you more adaptable to pick new things up. Apart from that, whatever you have picked earlier, since you understood the fundamentals, they are strong enough to go back and pick them back again if you ever need it. So I think that's where I learned this thing. Like, you should enjoy what you're doing. Whether it's a passion or not, good luck if it's your passion. Even if it's not, do justice to it.
Very beautifully put. We have another question from Sachin here, who says that sometimes we don't know the solution to a problem, and we ask again and again to a person, and they also get overwhelmed. Is there any point to this whole exercise?
I didn't really get the question. Can you repeat?
So I think the point is that they sometimes find someone to ask for help, but even that person eventually gets overwhelmed because there are just too many questions coming. So the way I see it, Sachin, seems to be depending on a single person. And how does he really go about finding the right people to whom he can pose his problems so that he can get the solution to the problem wherever he's stuck?
I think first I would say if you found a problem that others are not able to solve it also, it's a good problem to solve. It's a good problem to learn at least. Solve is like again like we will see whether we are able to solve it or not. But it's a good problem to have because then you know it's you're learning something worthwhile. It's difficult, it's complex. It will give you good insights that you are not the only one who is just missing the easier like sometimes you're not seeing the writings on the wall and you're making mistakes. Now how do you go for solving it? Maybe reach out to more senior people. That would be one approach. If you have connections to, or maybe if there is someone in your team who have done something of similar, who is have more experience, just ask for help. Now again, I understand a lot of people doesn't have those. I think Stack Overflow, like it's the bread and butter of the software development people. Like all of us use it. Probably maybe a lot of people say they won't, but let me tell you, everyone does. Everyone posts on them, everyone reads from them, everyone copies from there. Use it. If you're not able to find there, post it, someone will answer. People like to share. In the technology domain, I think the one thing good about is people like to share their learnings. Take advantage of that. People really, it's not like some proprietary knowledge is there. They don't want to help others. People are really helpful. People are like, even they would be sitting 10,000 miles away from you, they would still reply 5 times a day just to so that you can help, you can get things solved. And that's a very nice part that I felt about this community. So again, even if you're not, if let's say Stack Overflow is you're not able to sort of solve it, maybe reduce the problem, cut the problem into smaller sections so that you can individually solve all of them, and then probably you will have an answer. Sometimes problems are unsolvable to be. Let's say if you ask me, how do you build if you want to replicate Facebook today, can I do it? There are a lot of design decisions you would see on Grokking and everywhere, that how do you design the FB? But that's not what FB is today. Like it's a behemoth. So maybe reduce to smaller sections, and then probably you might have an answer or maybe working solution to it. Again, these are all generic fun day. Like I would not say I'm telling you anything new which you don't know. But I think generally simple is good. Simple works. Keep it simple. Try to reach to someone with a better experience, or maybe post it on Stack Overflow somewhere. It works generally.
No, even if you're not sharing anything new, sometimes it's just good to be reminded of those simple things that we tend to forget in our day-to-day lives. So thank you so much for sharing that. What I really liked about what you said was it really tied into to what a lot of psychologists say when people come to them talking about, hey, I have a certain goal in mind and I'm not able to meet it. What do I do? And they again say that just breaking down into smaller chunks, which was exactly what you talked about when you said that let's break down the problem to smaller words. I've never heard that being said in the context of software development before. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Aashish. At this point, we are almost done. I would request if there are any last questions for Aashish, please do share them. So as I said, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can just DM your question to me and I will post that to Aashish directly. I'm not gonna let this awkward silence go on for too long though. All right, I think there are no further questions. So yeah, it's been a wonderful session. I think even though we had organized this for the larger tech community, there are learnings here which apply to everyone. And all the points were so beautifully put and so clearly and succinctly presented by Aashish. So thank you, Aashish, for that. We talked about just understanding what growth mindset is. We talked about how if we develop it, in order to develop it rather, we have to keep upskilling ourselves. We have to be very curious about problems. We have to be very inquisitive about why things are happening the way they happen. Read lots of books, keep taking upskilling courses. Sure, we keep you busy, but it will also help you in the long run. And we really hope that this session was helpful to you and will help you further. I'm sure every single person here is already in that whole growth mindset. But I hope that this helps in your journey to develop and become a better version of yourself. So thank you again, Aashish. Hope you had fun in our interaction. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Yash, and thanks, Masai, for having me. It was my pleasure to discuss with you guys. Again, it was my first time coming out to, and it's a new experience that I'm learning. As I said, you just keep trying new things out. It's a good experience.
You're really good at it. It doesn't look like that it's the first time. So
no,
I
this
really
is my
appreciate
first
you
time.
doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Yash.
So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, audience, for joining us today for this session. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with a new speaker. So stay tuned for the updates for that. And I hope you have a great rest of Thursday and the rest of the week. Have a great evening.